I'm your king.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
You don't vote for kings.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up! Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is a morning somewhere for July 5th, 2024. My name is Bernie Burns. Sitting right over there, she still has all 10 fingers after 4th of July. Say hi to Ashley, everybody.
I practiced fireworks safety.
Yeah, you practiced safe liberty yesterday. So a lot going on in the world, a lot of freedom for America, a lot of celebration of freedom.
Yeah,
and then
we talked a lot about American freedom yesterday, but there's
only country in the world with freedom.
the only one. But it was not just a day of revolution for America, but for the UK as well yesterday.
It's not called, we found out what it's called here in the UK, by the way. It's not called 4th of July. They call it Ungrateful Day. You uppity colonists.
But it was also, yesterday was also an election day in the UK. So the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, called for an election. It was kind of weird because it was like months earlier than necessary, but he went ahead and did it. And probably regrets that now because his party, the Conservative Party, lost a ton of seats and lost control of the government.
I can read you the scoreboard here really quickly. Labor now, you need 326 seats to have a majority in Parliament. So now Labor, as of yesterday's elections, has 410 seats, came up 209 seats from
Well,
201.
Bernie, their coach is going to be real happy about that one. That is putting a big score up on the board.
Check the scoreboard. So 209 on 201, taking them to 410. The Conservative Party has 119 seats. Currently, they lost 248 seats yesterday.
That's a huge L. That might be, is that one of their, if not their worst ever performance in an election?
Well, it changes the government for the first time in 14 years now.
Yes.
Because it has been conservative-led now for the last 14 years, through the Brexit period, if I may point that out.
Yes, that is accurate.
Liberal Democrats made big gains as well. They have now 71 seats, gaining 63 seats. The SNP, Scottish National Party, is down to only 9 seats, lost 38 seats. And then there's a collection of other parties in there as well. I think it's a common sidebar in a lot of elections these days is what are the parties that are gaining ground. Like there is a Reform Party, which is seen as a very far right-wing party gaining ground.
That's a new party or something, I think.
Led by a broadcaster, too. Seems like a very modern thing.
It does.
Yeah. And then the Green Party made strides, had their best ever. They gained 4 seats in Parliament.
Well, congratulations to them. Windmills for all.
You know what? It's always strikes me when I think about different parties and winning elections when you hear about it in other countries. Because I think, Ashley, the way most people outside of the UK will see this change is that there will be a new prime minister.
Yes, is like, congratulations, Keir Starmer, for becoming the new prime minister. That is the sort of sum total of what most of the world will care because it's a localized political thing, right?
But it's a major change. When the Conservatives took over and there was a huge anti-immigration push and a big national push in the UK that led to Brexit, which has been a huge part of our coming over here as well. A huge part of that story because that started in the 2000 teens. It was voted into place, but it was being executed while we were making our transition over here.
Yes. So the year that we moved over, I think, is when Brexit was sort of finalized. And then a little while later is when it was like Brexit actually happened and was like officially done. You know, they took the flag down and everything. And then...
Yeah, there was a big article about how the EU, they just took the flag down, the UK flag.
How unceremonious.
Very, very little ceremony as well. See you later. I don't know if people remember too, but Scotland voted to remain in the EU. And there was a vote where Scotland wanted to have independence, but it narrowly missed that. And one of the things was that they wanted to remain in the EU, but then Brexit happened, and then they ended up leaving the EU anyway. They had to as being part of the UK. And there was this movement called Leave a Light On for Scotland, that Scotland will be back. That was the talk at the time. But with the SNP losing seats, I don't think that's in the works at this point in time.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. And a lot of this might sound like complete gibberish if you don't follow the local politics, which most people outside the UK won't. But, we're starting to learn names. Like there was a lot of the big name conservative politicians. You might recognize the name Liz Truss. She's the lady who was prime minister for 40 days, almost as long as a head of lettuce lasts.
Right. There were all these memes about her when she was prime minister. and she was out so quickly. It was like all the things that lasted longer than Liz Truss that month.
Yeah. And so that's a big one. But there's a lot of the big name conservative politicians. So they didn't even win their seat. Like, so they're just out of the government. So because they didn't win their local seat,
That's wild.
They're no longer in the parliament.
So that would be, I'll try to equate this back to U.S. listeners. So that would be like if Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell, if these leaders in Congress, if they just didn't get reelected by their home district and they were just gone. You know, they couldn't even go back to Congress.
Yeah, that's just it. They're just out.
It's not a leadership thing. They're just no longer in the game, basically.
Right. They're not in the room anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see a lot of the big names. So Liz Truss is one, Penny Mordaunt, Jacob Rees-Mogg is another one that I recognize. Is like these are all like big name like ministers, or they were all those three were all in the cabinet for Rishi Sunak, and they're just not even in government now.
Yeah, not even government. Do you remember Liz Truss, the big impact she had for us personally?
I do. She released, one of the reasons that she was only prime minister for like 40-something days is she released something called like a mini budget, and it completely tanked the UK economy like overnight.
Well, it specifically the pound. The pound went down to $1.03.
Which is the lowest it's ever been, right?
No, maybe not it's ever been, but it was in our lifetime for sure. Like the only thing that came close to that level was COVID. She went way under that level. I can't blame it entirely on her. But yeah, the pound and the dollar being on parity, there's been times in my life where a pound has been worth $2. So if you visited the UK during that 40-day period, boy, what a bargain you got on fish and chips.
I was going to say you could afford so many sandwiches.
I remember the first time I went to London, I saw a sign. It was like right on the Thames. You know, this little touristy area, like right down by the London Eye. There was a sign out in front of a pub that said, "Come on in for fish and chips. It's 28 pounds." I'm like, $28 for lunch
28 pounds
is not that bad. And then I realized, oh, that's like $50. Holy shit. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I had to double it in my head. It would probably be actually a really normal price today for fish and chips. But at the time, it was absolutely obscene. Pre-inflation. I had to adjust my anecdote there for inflation. But yeah, whenever I try to envision, like, you know, you read these other parties and you just like hear like what they're like, where they fall on the political spectrum. And I always had this opinion, Ash, before we moved over here, or really, you know, growing up, I always had this opinion that politics in Europe were all like what we called conservative and liberal in the US. Like everything in Europe and the UK was left of all of US politics. Like you had the far left in the UK, then you had the staunch far right conservatives, then a little bit to the right of that, you had liberal Democrats in the US, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it is left is a much lefter here, I feel.
Right. But I feel like Brexit kind of quashed that you know, that not all politics in America is to the right of everything in Europe.
Yes, I would agree with that as well.
But I always wonder when I see these, like the party names, like when you hear about like a far right party gaining ground, right? You think, like, what would happen if they like won and they took over and they had the majority? For a lot of parties, I can envision that, like what that looks like. Like the far right, you're like, oh shit. You can envision what that looks like just by looking at a history book, right? The one I can't ever picture is the Green Party. Like if the Green Party got a majority in every form of government and every executive branch.
There'll be a windmill in every backyard.
Would we just go like straight to the Star Trek environment? Like we all wear the jumpsuit and we're all like, it's a utopia. Like what would that look like?
We're no longer on the pound sterling. We use the credit.
We would all be like, what's the name of the brown wizard from Lord of the Rings?
Oh, Radagast.
We would all live like that. We would all have like, our cars would be towed by animals and things like that. Yeah. This is a service we provide for you all here at Morning Somewhere. We try to take global politics and relate it to deleted scenes in the Lord of the Rings complete series.
We try to keep it relatable.
But yeah, so another thing too that we should point out was something we were shocked by when we came here. I don't know if we've talked about this before or not. In the U.S., you don't vote unless you're a citizen. That's it, right?
Right.
And or if you've gotten a felony, which is a thing in a lot of different countries too. I point that out for no reason whatsoever. But when we came here, we were a little shocked because we assumed like, oh, at some point we might be able to vote in elections here in Scotland. We were shocked we were asked to register right away to vote. And so I want to say we were wondering if we could vote in the UK parliamentary elections. The answer is no, we cannot. But in the UK, you can vote in local elections if you're a resident but not a citizen of the country. And like a lot of things in the UK, it's the way it is.
Let me guess. Well, but that's different.
But that's different, yeah. So we'll link it if you're interested in this kind of thing. They can do the full breakdown for you. But essentially, if you're in the UK and you're an EU citizen who's a resident, then you can vote in local elections. But in Scotland, which is part of the UK, there's different rules where you can vote for the Scottish Parliament and you can vote in local elections if you're a resident, but a citizen of any country. It's not just limited to the EU.
Which kind of makes sense to me. Like if you live here, if you legally live here, you should have a say in things. But it is interesting. The Scottish Parliament being, I would equate it the most closely to, I guess, almost like a state government. It handles devolved matters. So health, like you hear a lot about the NHS here, and it's separate in Scotland has a completely separate Scottish NHS. Education, justice, police, fire services, and housing are all matters that are handled by the Scottish Parliament. But then you have national matters like, as you mentioned earlier, immigration is a big one, and that would be like a national, like UK Parliament.
And just to illustrate this, like there's all these different categories, and it's like a matrix because then all the 4 countries that are part of the UK, we just talked about with a felony conviction. One of the categories is if you're a convicted prisoner detained in prison, and what you can vote in, what you can't. England, no. Wales, no. Northern Ireland, no. Scotland, sentence of 12 months or less. Just like you did something, but it's not so bad. It's not so bad.
So just if it's just a little light prison, then go ahead.
It's crime with a lowercase c. It's just like shame on you. Anything worse than that, no, you can't vote.
But, one of the interesting things here, too, is so obviously you don't vote for prime minister, right? You vote for your local, I guess, like parliamentary member. And then whichever group, whichever party, in this case, it's the Labour Party, wins the most seats in the sort of the local elections, that party picks the prime minister.
Right.
Which is crazy to me that it's like, I didn't vote for you.
You don't vote for King. But there's also, I have to say, we were talking about this. We're learning on the fly here as well. So there's going to be some things, unfortunately, that we get a little wrong. They're a little nuanced. It's just like when you grow up anywhere, context becomes so important. We've run into that by just trying to pronounce town names here. And people are like, well, it's pronounced this way. It's like, yeah, but it's not written that way. Like there's no way unless you grew up in the region of that town that you would know it's pronounced that way. Like Absolutely. I would love to have a UK person try to pronounce like different names of different towns in America. We had this in Austin, but our approach is like when we have a name of a street like Manchaca, what is clearly spelled Manchaca, and people.
Oh, you mean Manchac?
And people in Austin call that street Manchac. We acknowledge that the way we pronounce it is stupid. Like, that's not the way that's written. And we don't make fun of people who read it as Manchaca because that's the way it's written on the goddamn sign,
Absolutely.
We know we're being dumb.
Preach.
Or you have Manor Road, which we pronounce Manor for some reason. Anyway, so context becomes such a huge thing. And you can't override that. One of my favorite things about that is language. I didn't even know this growing up. I spoke American English my entire life. And it was in my 30s that someone pointed out that there is an order by which adjectives are applied to a noun. And if you apply them in the wrong way, it can reveal the fact that you're not a native English speaker. And it's not an official order. It's just the way we all speak.
It's like an unspoken rule that everyone just sort of knows and agrees on. It's really weird.
Yeah, like if you say my big red round ball, you wouldn't say my round red big ball.
It just sounds off.
It just sounds off. It sounds like an uncanny valley.
Yeah, here we go. The order of descriptors. Here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Adjectives that describe feelings, adjectives of size, age, temperature, measurement, color, nationality or origin, substance or material, and then...
I see what you're saying. So if I had like a big steel ball and I said it's a steel big ball, you'd be like, that's
wrong.
That's
just wrong.
And you don't realize it till you hear it. You don't realize it. Yeah. It's all I'm saying a lot of things are that way. Like we run to that even when you hear names of very popular politicians. Like I had to say Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, right? Because people in the US might know them. I don't have any illusions to anyone outside of the U.S. Or, for instance, we said yesterday, when you say the 4th of July, people are just like, okay, why are you saying that with such reverence? Who gives a fuck about that?
There's another thing, too, with local stuff. And this is, so it's one of the weird things about travel, but this is celebrity, right? We're talking about local celebrities now. You go into like a convenience store or something in a new area, a new country, and you walk past the magazines. And they'll be like, Heather, there's like tearful apology to Benny over some gaffe, right? Some confusion or whatever. And you're like, who the hell are Heather and Benny?
Right.
And, you know, but they're like, in this magazine, they're a first name basis. You know who Heather and Benny are.
Right, exactly. And we get a little jaded to that in the U.S. Like if they said Drake and Kendrick are at it again, you know, people might know who that is because, you know, U.S. entertainment goes more places. But there are absolutely people like in Asia and Korea go, who the fuck are Drake and Kendrick?
Yeah,
you know
they'll be like Paris spotted out partying. You know what they're talking. Like it's a first name. You know, you get it.
Right. You know, it's funny you say this because I don't even know if I want to read this article. It's so weird. It's such a weird article. It just basically shows that celebrity is a construct, right? The thing we're talking about. Like when you go somewhere else, you realize what a construct celebrity is.
Right. Like your own are constructed too. It's just that you're used to it.
So Kevin Bacon, I'm going to disclaim this before I read it. Kevin Bacon has a movie coming out, I think, this weekend called Maxine. And for some reason, there's this weird article on NBC News. I'll just read you the headline here. Kevin Bacon details his experience trying to be a regular person for a day. His reaction, this sucks. So basically, he went out and he tried to live as a normal, unrecognizable person, one of the unwashed masses. So he said, I went to a special effects makeup artist, had consultations, and I asked them to make me a prosthetic disguise. His new look made him resemble his seedy character that he portrays in the upcoming horror film Maxine. Well, there you go. And so he went out and he realized that living out his dream wasn't quite what he imagined. He said, people were kind of just, you know, pushing past me, not being nice, he recalled. Nobody said, I love you. Really, nobody on the subway said, I love you. I had to wait in line to you, I don't know, buy a fucking coffee or whatever. That has to be a Planet article, right?
You're right, bro. That sucks.
How can someone be so goddamn
disconnected?
That's got to be fake.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no way I believe that this is 100% an article that exists to promote the fact that he's got a movie coming out this weekend. That's not a real thing.
By the way,
also,
Kevin Bacon looks great, 65. He looks fucking amazing.
He does look great. Beloved hero, childhood hero, Kevin Bacon. He taught a whole town to dance.
You know, I guess that was a Baptist thing, right? The town was Baptist, so they didn't allow dancing. There's a lot of Baptist stuff that is left over in Texas, like dry counties and stuff. But one of the things when I moved there that's so hard to explain to other people is like when I moved to Texas, stores weren't open on Sunday. Like Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is not open on Sunday, right?
Right. They're holding the line.
And you try to explain it to people here, Ashley. You try to explain, like, there's this popular chicken restaurant, but they don't open on Sundays ever. Even like if they're in a mall that's open on Sunday, that store is closed. And people say, why? And you have to say,
well, God doesn't like it.
You just sound like a lunatic. I mean, the context of our upbringing, it's normal. But then when you try to describe it to someone outside of the context, you're like, was I raised by fucking lunatics? God doesn't want us to eat chicken on a Sunday?
It's another example of that, like, local context you just take for granted because you grew up with it, right? You grew up with that language. But, it's crazy. You know, this Kevin Bacon thing, I can't stop thinking about it. And it's, he put on prosthetics.
Yeah.
Has he never seen a Marvel movie, Bernie? All you have to do is put on, like, a hoodie and a baseball cap and you're good to go.
Is Kevin Bacon in the MCU anywhere?
Not that I know of, but he'd be a great addition.
Dude, it's always shocking the number of people like you forget that are in the MCU, like Ben Kingsley and
Bradley
stuff like
Cooper.
That. Yeah, Edward Norton at one point, I suppose. Yeah, it's just crazy. It's crazy. Even Christian Bale, is in the MCU.
So let me ask you this, Bernie.
Yes.
Favorite Kevin Bacon movie, and why is it Tremors?
Tremors was great. There's like 5 of those, by the way. We should do a Tremors marathon at some point. I can't think of a.
I don't know that I've ever seen one beyond the first one, but that movie, it has no right to be as good as it is. I remember watching it when I was younger, and first of all, it was very scary because I was, out in an arid area, which felt far too familiar. But it was just so good. It's perfect.
I'm making my thinking noise over here. Here's my favorite Kevin Bacon movie.
Footloose?
It's the one that he's in with Denise Richards. and the sexy movie, and the other actress who's not Denise Richards.
Got okay.
What is it?
Which is
what's that? Charlie Sheen?
Wild Things?
Yes. Ask me again here, and I'm ready to answer your question.
Bernie, what is your favorite Kevin Bacon movie?
Denise Richards. That's my favorite one of all time. Hey, while we're talking about celebrity and numbers and scoreboards and stuff like that, I do want to read you something that has made me happy today. I normally don't revel in anyone else's failures, but I'm going to take this one as a W to keep the sports analogy going.
He's putting one up on the board, folks.
So this is from an article on AP News. The NFL has been found guilty and is liable for a massive fine in a Sunday ticket case. I'm going to read you the headline here by Joe Reedy. That's a great sports reporter name. The damages a federal jury has ordered the NFL to pay for violating antitrust laws in distributing out-of-market Sunday afternoon games on a premium subscription service is $4,707,259,944.64. That's their fine that they got.
A multi-billion-dollar fine is a big deal.
And where does that money go? I wonder, like, where does it go to, like, fund people being able to buy NFL tickets? Where does it go? Like,
it goes to the Celtics.
I tell you where it goes.
The NFL now owns the Celtics.
Now the Justice Department owns the Boston Celtics. I would love if the Boston Celtics became like a unit of monetary measurement. That would be amazing. You owe us one Boston Celtics.
Look, Bernie, back in the day when you were visiting Sweden or whatever, you were looking at your sandwich economy. We now have wild inflation, and we're in a Celtics economy.
Dude, I got to say, too.
How many Celtics will that buy?
I got to point something out here, which is completely obvious to everybody. The wealth disparity in the world now is getting so out of control. The 6 months that we've been doing this podcast, it's so crazy. We either talk on one of the two extremes. We're either talking about $300 for groceries, or we're talking about $40 billion. Like, there's nothing in between. We never have discussions about any numbers in between, it doesn't feel like. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's the number of things that we talk about that are in the billions and just like how common that is. And it's like this billions of dollars, this billions of dollars. I can't even conceive of what $1 billion is and does.
Gigabucks.
Yeah. we're in the terabucks now, or petabucks, or whatever.
No, we're not the petabucks yet. That'd be quadrillion.
Okay, yeah. Give it another.
I mean, we're not assholes.
Give it a little bit more inflation before we get there.
Crazy fucking world that we're in. But I have to say, I don't try to revel in anyone else's face plants, but man, they have made watching sports so complicated in the modern streaming environment. They've tried to hold on to all this old shit, and now they have fucked up and they owe $4.7 billion to somebody. I don't know who.
Yeah, so here's
just let us watch the games. I paid $120 for MLB's app. Let me just watch the goddamn games. I don't care about my fucking region. Now they have this thing where they got to activate your precise location to make sure you're in the right spot. Help me help you, dude. I'm paying you $120 a year. I want to watch the goddamn game. I'm already paying taxes to pay for your fucking stadium where you operate your business. Let me in for free. God damn it.
You seem awfully worked up about this, Bernie. Can I suggest that you start a new political party and run with that as your platform? Here's the platform, new platform. We have, Fight the Planet. And the second part of the platform now is
my own SNP, the Sports Nationalist Party. That's what I'm doing.
Is to require all sports to operate all games under a single network per season. So, because like you were saying this Sunday afternoon out of network game. No. If you're the NFL, you're operating this network for this season. That's the platform.
Well, I think I would last less time in office than Liz Truss. That would be my legacy in politics. But vote for me anyway, fuckers. Vote for me, my Sports Nationalist Party. All right, anything else going on in the world, Ashley? What's the crack? Anything else?
So Kevin Bacon is in a movie that's coming out.
Oh, I had no idea. Regular person Kevin Bacon? Please, go to the theaters this week and watch Kevin Bacon in Denise Richards 2. An American Saga. All right, who do we have to thank for today?
I would like to thank Dredger and Raj Concepcion for sponsoring this episode of Morning Somewhere at patreon.com/Morning Somewhere. Thank you both for sponsoring this episode of the show.
You know what? You two guys sponsored this podcast. You should not have to wait in line for coffee today. Don some prosthetics, act like a celebrity, and just get in there and grab your coffee, flip everybody off, and then leave the room.
And I love you.
All right. Well, that does it for us this week. If you participated in the UK elections yesterday, I'm very happy for you, or I'm sorry that happened. Whichever you prefer. We will be back to talk to you on Monday. We hope you all will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.